like truly sinking into the depths of what seems like complete psychosis. Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Just Another Struggling Writer, the beleaguered author's one-stop shop for commiseration and hopefully inspiration. My name is Carrie Scher, and I am just another struggling writer. Today is the start of another reading vlog, and I hope to make this one an actual weekly reading vlog. As you may have noticed, I have really struggled with these weekly reading vlogs. First of all, just reading enough in a single week to justify a vlog, and also being consistent with it. I talked about last week about how I took a couple weeks off to first deal with some very chaotic stuff going on at my day job, and then also it was my vacation, so I was just laying at home decompressing and decided to just take the whole week off from obligations. So I haven't really been doing that much reading, but I am now back to real life, and with it is reading. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the books that I hope to read this week and what I have been up to. So my original intention was to read a whole shit ton while I was at home on staycation. And while I did read a little bit, the shit ton part didn't really pan out. So first of all, what I would like to do this week is finish what I started last week with Foundryside. I am about 150 pages in, and I am really enjoying it. If you're not familiar, Foundryside is about a young woman who makes her living as a thief, and she is quite good at it because she has a special talent. That talent is the ability to sort of read objects with the touch of her skin. She can know everything about it. She can see where in a wall there are handholds so she can more easily scale and climb in. She can, just find, shadows and things to hide in better. And she can also tell when something has been scribed. And that is the magic system in this world, where it is basically a series or a system of runes that you carve into an object to make it think that reality has changed or is different in certain ways. And so it obeys different laws of reality. And that magic system is so cool. It is kind of almost like coding, and there are huge unknowable lists of different ways to use these scribing to make objects behave differently, from very simple door locks to very, very complicated ways of transportation and whatnot. And I really love that. It is so cool. And we start this book following Santia, who has been tasked to steal an object from a very heavily fortified part of the city. And in the course of things, she realizes that the object that she has stolen is actually a very powerful magical device that will redefine what this civilization knows about magic. And it comes in the form of a sentient key that can unlock anything. And just the whole ordeal that she has already been through just in the first 150 pages, it has been really, really fascinating. I really, really love her. I love the magic system itself. I don't know that I love Clef just yet. His personality is the type that tends to grate on me, but I love the concept of him and what he means to the greater universe. We also follow a secondary POV character named Gregor, who is the captain of the guard of the area that Sentia stole from. So he has a very personal vendetta against her, that she kind of embarrassed him and managed to not only steal this object from right under his nose, but kind of destroyed that part of town that was under his watch. And so he's a very good investigator, and he is pursuing her quite relentlessly. And I'm really interested to see how those two collide. I think when I put this book down, they were just about to actually collide. So I'm really loving this so far. So I hope to finish it. It's about 500 pages. Like I said, I've read about 150. So a very, very doable amount of reading will finish this one off. The next book I'm going to start this week, I don't anticipate I don't anticipate finishing it, but I am finally going to jump into The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. I have been a little bit reticent to read Joe Abercrombie. I keep wanting to say Amber. Joe Abercrombie's body of work, because I do know that it is a little bit darker. It is a little bit more, the protagonists are more anti-heroes who are not necessarily good people. And that typically isn't my jam. If I wanted to read about people being horrible to each other, I would just read the news. But I also know that Joe Abercrombie is well beloved in the fantasy genre, and I have been trying to familiarize myself more with the genre in general as I get back more into reading and as I try to write my own fantasy novel. So I have that on audio. I tend to prefer listening to books that aren't to my taste on audio. I don't know why that is. I just find them easier to digest, but it is quite long. It's about 22 hours, and as I have expounded upon ad nauseum, I am not a very fast audio listener. I can't listen to it in most circumstances. I can only listen to it when I am completely able to focus on it, which kind of defeats the purpose of audio. I know. I can only listen at 1.5 times speed. That is the absolute fastest I can go before it becomes like sounding like gibberish in my head. So again, I really don't see myself finishing that one this week, but I do plan on actually getting started on it. And if I manage to finish Foundryside, the third book I am going to tackle in this vlog is One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. This is another fantasy book with a magic system that I find intriguing. This one has to do with a deck of cards, and each card gives you some sort of magical power. I find that really, really cool. And I've heard a lot of great things about this first book. Not so many great things about the second one, but that's neither here nor there. So I picked this up on a whim on my last trip to Barnes & Noble. I was just like passing by the table where it was at, and I was just like, yeah, why not? So this one came up in my random draw for my TBR for this month, and yeah, I just think this will be a nice little follow-up to Foundryside. I've also got some library books coming up, or that I need to return very, very soon. I don't know if I'm going to get to them. The main one is Forged by Blood by Eggebor Okusun. This is another African-inspired fantasy, and that is due in just a couple of days. So I don't know that I'll finish it, but I am going to, I'll see. The benefit of my library books is that they're all on my Kindle, and while obviously I can't read my physical books at work, the library books that I have on my Kindle, I can, like on my lunch break or in the creases or whatever. So I'm going to see if I can get that one finished. Okay, so 390 pages. So I could probably do that in a couple of days. I just have to really be focused. One book I'm definitely going to try and finish. One book I'm going to start. Another book I'd like to read, but I can only read at home. And a fourth book that I need to finish very, very soon that is on my Kindle. So pretty wide variety. I don't anticipate reading all 4 of these books in a single week, especially The Blade itself. That one is probably going to take me like 3 or 4 weeks to finish, but those are the books I am planning on reading this week. So I will follow up with you again when I've made progress, most likely on Foundryside, but I will also check in with you once I've gotten started on The Blade itself as well. Hey everyone, just checking in with a quick reading update. I have gotten to about the 175 page mark of Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett, and I am really enjoying it. And this last sequence that I just read really made me wish that it would get a TV show of some kind, because it just feels so like I would love to watch like something really expansive. And I don't say that lightly because I don't really have time to watch a lot of TV, but like, and getting into very minor spoilers and less minor gore. So the part that I just read was the 2 main characters are being pursued by people who want this powerful magical objects that the thief has, and they are trying to escape them, and they run down an alley, and the assassins have devices attached to them that allow them to ignore the laws of gravity. And so the guardsman main character kind of runs down this alley, and there's like lines of like clothes drying on lines all like stringing up on the alley. And so he figures out that all he has to do is kind of hit them very lightly, and they'll go, because the way that the device works that makes them defy gravity just makes them like very light, and so he just hits them and they go careening off or like bouncing between like all of these like clotheslines, and it's just really, I love that visual. I'd love to see that. And then later in that sequence, the other main character, Sanchia, has this device, this like crossbow that shoots a rope that is, you know, scribed to get heavier or denser the more the person it is tied around struggles. And specifically it says that if they are not at rest, then it'll get denser and denser and denser. Well, because of these devices that make them ignore gravity, they are never at rest. They're constantly in motion. And so she uses this device and it goes around this person's legs, and because he can't stop himself, it gets denser and denser and denser until it just completely severs his legs. And then another one of these guys, she uses this powerful magical object, and it makes, like, she touches it to the like the gravity defying object on this dude, and it just makes him explode. And like, I'm not a big gore person. That would probably really gross me out if I watched that on TV, like severely. But I don't know, just something about that whole sequence, that whole fight scene was so cinematic that I wish we could have gotten, or we could get a show based on this. But I don't know how they would explain the magic system concisely or succinctly or enough for a TV audience. But I wish they would somehow figure it out, because I think this book would make a really, really interesting like HBO, you know, limited series. So that is Foundryside. Still really liking it. I didn't make too much progress. I got through that sequence yesterday. And then today I actually had a slight change of plans, because I realized that I had borrowed the audiobook None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell from the library, and it has to go back next week. And it's very short. It's only 10 hours. And I'm not actually a big thriller girly, but I want to be. I hear synopses of thrillers all the time, and I think that sounds really interesting. I want to find out what the twist is. But 9 times out of 10, what I do is I just Google like the spoiler or the twist. And I've read one thriller before, and I didn't really like it. In fact, I kind of hated it. But it's one of those situations, kind of like the experience I had with episode 13, where I can't figure out if it's the book or the genre that I'm not vibing with. So with None of This Is True, I heard the synopses. I can't remember where, but I thought that actually sounds really, really cool. And instead of just looking up what the twist is, I decided to check it out from the library. So I got it on audio because the ebook, like as soon as I opened the ebook, I realized that it's mixed media, and that just plays better on audio, even though I'm not a very good audio listener. And I'm glad that I did, because it's full cast, it's full sound production, all of that. So definitely if you're into those kinds of audiobooks and thrillers, I recommend it. But I'm only about 15% of the way in, but I'm hoping that this one works out better than the last thriller I read, which I really hated. But again, I don't know if it's if just that one book was bad, or if it's just because for some reason I don't vibe with the genre, even though I want to, because it's like all of these books sound like really good. We'll just have to see. So that is my reading update. I am going to get in my bed and do a little bit more reading right now and get a little bit of writing done. And yeah, I will check in with you guys tomorrow once I have made some more progress. Hey y'all, just checking in with 2 reading updates for you. As I mentioned last time, I am currently in the middle of 2 books. One is Foundryside by Robert Jackson Bennett, and the second is None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. First things first, I got to about 60%, page 301 last night in Foundryside. And I don't know that there is enough good things I can say so far about this book. I was thinking about it last night after I was in bed. Usually at this point in time, I have a pretty good sense of what I'm going to rate a book, and unless the ending is overwhelmingly bad or good. And I don't really have that sense yet, but it has the potential to be a 5. because, again, I just don't see that there's that much wrong with it, and I'm really enjoying it. Everything, even like my minor complaints about Clef in the beginning, were completely unfounded. Yes, he was kind of aggravating in the beginning. Like, I don't really like characters with that kind of voice. As the book has gone on, I appreciate him more as a character, which is so funny because he's a key. And then just the growing of like the cast of characters and how they're all, except for Sanchia, who is perfect and wonderful and I love her, they're all just a little bit kind of bitchy and kind of annoying in their own way, but in a way that makes it like realistic and whole. Not wholesome, but I don't know how to describe it. So that doesn't really bother me. In the same way that like the characters being kind of bitchy and annoying in Godkiller kind of annoyed me. It doesn't really bother me as much here. At this point in the story, we are just trying to find out who is trying to kill them all, basically, because they all know about this magical key. Only Sanchia knows that she actually still possesses it. The rest of the others in her little group think that she passed it on to the person who she stole it for, but they still need to know who that client was because they are now being pursued by assassins, presumably in the employ of this client, because they know about the key. And because of how powerful it is and what it means for the magic system and like the building blocks of the magic that they have been utilizing so far, it radically changes those, you know, the understanding and the calculus of all that. They obviously want to keep it secret and keep the knowledge of what it does and who might possess it, you know, to zero. So all of these people have a vested interest in finding out who this client is, and so they are kind of grudgingly working together towards that end. And there have been some really great revelations, some really great like heisty moments, because Sanchia is a thief and she's quite a good one, and because of her unique talents that she has, she's able to really she has a lot of really interesting like skills, but also that is counterbalanced by some pretty hefty limitations, and I love that. I love her struggle with her talents and how they came about and what it means for her, all the negatives that means for her. I really love that part of her character. And yeah, there's just so much to love about this book. I can easily see myself giving this a 5. I've got 200 pages left, just under 200 pages, and the climax. So I can't even say that I'm sitting at a 4.5 or a 4 or anything like that. I mean, it's up there, because I genuinely feel like if it continues on the trajectory and there's nothing like overwhelmingly disappointing about the ending, this could be another 5-star, which would be incredible, because the last time I had 2 5-star reads this close together was like 2018 when I read Assassin's Apprentice and The Fifth Season really close together. It's been that long since I've had like 2 5 stars really close together like this. So I really hope that it nails the ending. I'm really excited. I'm looking to finish it, probably not tonight, but either definitely this week. So that's Foundryside. Moving on to None of This Is True. I talked a little bit yesterday about how I am not really a thriller girly, even though I want to be. And I say that based on my reaction to one book, which I hated. And I knew at the time, I was like, I don't know if this is just a bad book or if I just don't like this genre. So far, I'm really enjoying None of This Is True. Again, I'm so unfamiliar with the genre that I don't know if a twist is coming. I know twists are like part and parcel of thrillers, but this one is setting up from the very beginning, just the way that it's told as a retrospective. Like, kind of the premise is we are consuming this media as like a true crime documentary after it's already happened, and so it's very clearly setting up an antagonist, or like I don't want to say antagonist, but like the perpetrator of whatever crime is going to be committed. It was told in dual perspectives, one from Alex, who is this podcaster who meets this woman on her birthday who happens to share the same birthday as her, and they keep bumping into each other, and Alex decides to do a podcast about this woman because her life just seems so not interesting, but like there's just so much going on with her. There's a lot of like darkness there, and she wants to explore that. And the other perspective is from the subject of the podcast, this woman named Josie. And this book so far, I'm at about 35%. So far, it has been really fascinating to watch Josie go from like this semi-normal, if kind of timid and mousy, unambitious woman in her 40s to like truly sinking into the depths of what seems like complete psychosis. So this is a much better reading experience than the last thriller so far. I'm not like furious at the characters and furious at the situation and like saying this doesn't make sense and this wouldn't happen and da 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 da, like I was in the last one. So, and it is very bingeable. And it's very short, you know, and all thrillers are fast paced, but this one is definitely very bingeable. Nothing like the last one I read. So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I also anticipate finishing that one hopefully this week. I had a big commute today, which is why I got so much of it done today. And I don't for the rest of the week. So that limits my chances to listen. But hopefully I'm going to get through that one also this week. And look, I'll finish 2 books in a week easily. And now I'm actually looking at like, what if I do finish Foundryside? What am I going to read next? And I think I'm going to start Five Broken Blades by Mike Corland. I'm just sort of in the mood for this style of book. You know, it's kind of like an unlikely band of misfits and thieves killing the king or something. I don't know, but it just seems like that's kind of what I want. Never mind the fact that I have 5 other books on my TBR. We're just not gonna go down that road. I also have another library book I need to pick up. Let's see. The next library book that is due next week. And that is Dragonfall by L.R. Lamb. Everything else I've got plenty of time. I had several loans from last month lapse. And I'm really disappointed about it. It's my fault. I should have tried harder to read more last month. I just couldn't. So we'll see. Like I said, I am really enjoying both of these books. And it feels really great to be enjoying both of these books after having such a slumpy spring. April and May and kind of the end of March even were very, very slumpy. And I really struggled to read and enjoy the books that I had on my list. So it does feel really, really refreshing to genuinely enjoy the reading process again. Like, I never get through 2 hours of an audiobook in a day. That just doesn't happen. But like, I genuinely got in the car this morning and I was like, I'm not going to listen to anything else. This is what I'm doing. And that felt great. So there is light at the end of the reading slump tunnel. You just have to find which book is going to do it for you. So I am going to get some more reading done this evening. Like I said, I don't see myself finishing either of these books today. Maybe not even tomorrow, but certainly by the end of the week, I will have a final reading update for you. So I will see you then. Hello. It is now Thursday evening. And despite what I may have said just yesterday, I actually did finish both books in the last 24 hours since we last spoke. So let's get to Foundryside first because I finished it first. Holy shit, I love this book. I will say that I didn't get that 5-star feeling that I expected, but I'm still going to give it 5 stars because holy shit, I love this book. I love the characters, most of them. And I also actually like that there are things I don't like about certain cast members. I actually think it's a plus. I love the journey, especially that Sanchia and Clef go on together. I love the reveal at the end, and I'm going to put a spoiler alert right here for a major spoiler. So if you haven't read Foundryside, please skip until you see this watermark disappear. But I love the reveal that Gregor also was scribed and had a plate in his head. I love that. I didn't see it coming, and as we have established a couple of times throughout the life of this channel, it really bothers me when I see a reveal coming. It takes a lot of the enjoyment out for me. And I don't know if that's a product of the books being heavy-handed with their foreshadowing, or if it's just that I am too well versed in, the construction of and formulation of books that I can just see them coming. But this one I definitely didn't see coming, and I love that. I also love what it means for his character. It made me appreciate him so much more, and I kind of want to go back and reread it with that knowledge and see like how all the pieces fit into place in that regard. Okay, spoiler off. I love the setup for the next book about how there's very clear consequences, and yet I don't think either I or Sanchia is entirely certain that it's necessarily a bad thing or it's necessarily the wrong choice or that anything terrible is necessarily going to come from it. I loved it. Easily 5 stars. I finished it and I came in bed and I immediately got on Barnes & Noble and ordered the next 2 books in the series. I completed the trilogy. I just loved it. I love the magic system. I love the world. I love the characters. I love the journey that they go on. I love the setup for the next book. I just love so much about it. So while I didn't get that gut, like, holy shit, I love this feeling while I was reading it, I don't know, I think the culmination of the experience added up to that in the end anyway. Does that make any sense? Like, there are times when I was reading other 5-star books like The Fifth Season or Red Sister, where I just had this moment where I could feel it like changing my brain chemistry, and I knew that it was such a good book that even in the middle of it, I never really had that experience while reading it, and yet I loved every moment of it. And when I closed it at the end, I knew that I was almost searching for reasons to knock it down to a 4.5, and the only thing I could come up with is that I didn't have that gut feeling, and that's, in this case, not a good enough reason to knock it down because it was just so good. I don't think it's perfect. I think some of the reveals towards the end, other than the one I talked about earlier, I don't know that I saw them coming. I mean, I kind of did, but I don't know that I think it's more because they were cliche rather than I actually saw them coming. So I didn't love certain reveals, but I also didn't hate them either, if that makes sense. I just felt like they were like not my favorite story writing choices, and yet they still made sense to me. So yeah, I love this book. I can't wait to read more in the series. Damn, just really, really excellent. I'm so glad that I got this on my random draw TBR. So that's Foundryside. And then this morning I got up and I was listening to None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell in my car. And then I got to my desk and I continued listening to it. And I just left it on all day while I was at my job. I have very, very rarely experienced an audiobook that I felt like I could not stop. Another one was House of Hollow by Kristen Sutherland, I think. That was another book, an audiobook that I listened to really, really fast. This is another one. I feel like this book was unputdownable, figuratively speaking. Definitely had that fast-paced thriller feel. I assume this is only my second thriller. And just like I said yesterday, watching the descent of how the psychosis of the story, just like the slow descent, loved it. However, I feel like that fell off in the third act. Once it was established that the one character had completely gone off the rails, and it became more about the actual scary parts of the thriller, the actual thrilling parts. It wasn't that thrilling. It was just sort of, okay, we know, we got it. So 2 things. About midway through the book, I started going, okay, let's get on with it. But I think that is not necessarily a fault of the book, and I think that's just my fault. I just don't think thriller is totally my genre. I'll have to have a larger sample size to be sure. I think I want the twists and the surprises and all of that stuff. And once I get them, and once I feel like I know everything established, I'm just like, okay, let's get on with it. And all of the facts, there wasn't really a twist in this book. And if there was supposed to be one, then it was not very well done, because there was, to me, absolutely zero twist in this book, which is not a problem. I still enjoyed the vast majority of it. But like I said, as we got to that third act, we already knew kind of everything we needed to know. And so the last third just felt like Okay. All right. Like, I was kind of expecting more drama out of that third act, to be honest with you. So up until those last 100 pages or so, I thought this was probably going to be like a 4.5, but the last bit of it knocked it down to a 4 for me, because it just was like, I didn't feel like it did anything. The best part about the first part of the book was having the knowledge that one of these characters was not who she claimed to be, and that her involvement, and that these two women's the relationship they have with each other was going to end in some, like, it says right at the very beginning that it ends in 2 deaths, and, you know, blows up one of these women's lives. And so knowing that from the beginning, I love that. I have always said that I love having that knowledge, because it colors your perception of everything you read, and it gives it like a sense of darkness and tension, and like it makes the POV of this one character completely unreliable. And I love that. I love, like, not knowing which parts are outright lies, which parts are her perception. And I love that in the epilogue that's addressed directly. Loved that part. Loved it. But like I said, that third act was just sort of, it didn't break any new ground. And that was supposed to be, I guess, the thrilling part, when all of the bad stuff is going down. And I just found that to be the most boring part, to be honest with you. But yeah, I would say the fact that I could not stop listening until I was done. And I loved the central premise and all of that. Yeah, a solid 4 stars, and convincing me to give Thriller another shot. I think it has to be the right book, for sure. And I think that if you belabor the point too long, you're going to lose me, which I think was part of the problem with the other one, other than just like, anyway, we're not going to talk about that other book. So, wow, 2 very, very strong reads after months of struggling. I am back with 2 like really, really great reads in the same week. And wow, does that feel really good. As soon as I finished the audiobook today for None of This Is True, I immediately was like, what am I reading next? I have got to pick up another book. And so on the way home from work, now my commute is a lot shorter these days because I moved to an office that is way closer to home. But on my way home from work, and this speaks back to like how badly I wanted to continue reading literally anything. I got in my car, and even though it was only like 10-minute commute, I started The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. I only listened to the prologue because, like I said, I don't have that much time in my car anymore. But I started that, and then I also picked up and read the first few chapters of 5 Broken Blades by May Corland. May or Mike Corland? I'll look that up for next time. So not much to say about either of those yet, but I think that The Blade Itself is going to be my next audiobook. The 5 Broken Blades is going to be my next physical book. And then I was like, that's not enough reading. I also am going to start probably tomorrow an ebook. And for that, I went back to my library because, again, I have a bunch of books coming due. And the next one is Dragonfall by L.R. Lamb. And this is another dragon book. I thought it was YA, but I looked it up and it doesn't seem to be YA, but it is quite short. So there's a plus to that. So I'm going to try and get that started tomorrow, as well as continuing those other 2 books. And yeah, I hope that the momentum continues, and I hope that these last couple of days have snapped me out of that reading slump that I've been in since the end of March. So that's my reading update. Really, really glad that I picked up both of these books. Really, really glad that I feel like really energized about reading again. And looking forward to having many more reading sessions in the near future. So tomorrow's Friday. As you know, I struggle to film on Fridays because that is like I consider that to be my evening off, since I do tend to do creative work over the weekends and during the week. Friday nights, I just want to come home and decompress. So filming, I don't know that that's going to happen, but with as energized as I feel about reading right now, I wouldn't be surprised if I get a bunch of reading done tomorrow and then have to update you. So I will check in with you either tomorrow or Saturday, but either way, I'm so glad to be this excited about reading again. I'll see you with another reading update soon.
Good morning, everyone. It is now Saturday morning, and I have some reading updates for you. I have started a couple of books since we last spoke. I think I mentioned that I was starting The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie on audio. I'm not terribly far into it because I'm a slow audio listener, and my commute is fairly short these days. So I've listened to the prologue and most of the first chapter, but that's about it. So I don't really have any thoughts on that. And then I started Dragonfall by L.R. Lamb. I don't really know what to think about this one just yet. I think it's okay. I'm not a huge fan of books that have multiple POVs, but they're all in first person. I really struggle with those. This one is doing an okay job because the voices are pretty distinct, and it had one of its pros is that it's fairly short. So even if I don't love it, I think I could get through it pretty quickly. I'm about 15% of the way into that one. I also started Five Broken Blades by May Corland. And unfortunately, after reading the first 50 pages, so about 10%, I have decided to DNF. And the reason for that is kind of what I just mentioned. I was on my fourth POV by the time that I finally stopped. And they're all in first person, except for one. One was not in first person, so I don't know what that was about. But all of the voices sounded identical to each other. The writing style really isn't to my taste. It's kind of like this surface level edgy, almost juvenile, but not quite. The quote that really sticks out to me was one where we're introducing a assassin courtesan character, and she describes herself in the opening, like this is the opening paragraph to her. The meadow is beautiful this time of year. I run my delicate bejeweled hand over the tall grass. The green grass is lovely and soft, and yet at the same time, hard and sharp, like me. And that was just so, first of all, it meant nothing. How is grass both hard and soft and gentle and sharp? And second of all, like just so cringy, like describing yourself like that as, a courtesan assassin. I don't know. I kind of hated it. And again, like we got to this fourth POV and it just sounded all like all the others, and it just didn't feel distinct. And it didn't feel, like I said, the writing style just wasn't for me. And then the other reason is, I may have pushed through that, but the other thing is this book, this physical copy of this book was not for me a very pleasant reading experience. First of all, like the words are so huge, and I feel like the typesetting is not consistent, and maybe I'm just imagining that, but like it feels like the typesetting is just not consistent. And then every time we get a new chapter, it leaves an entire blank page. So instead of starting on the next page, it leaves a blank page. And it just felt kind of unnecessary. And it led me to think that the reason for this huge typeface and all this unnecessary pages is to make this book feel longer. It's pretty thick in my hands, but it's only like 475 pages, something like that. But looking at the words and some of these formatting choices, it almost makes me feel like they were trying to make this book feel longer than it is. And that was when I realized this is a Red Tower book. And I have not read any other Red Tower books because their books so far have not been to my taste in terms of content. And then this one sounded really good, but I'm now just wondering kind of what their editing thought processes are, and I'm definitely questioning their like physical product thought processes. Because this, again, it just wasn't very pleasant. Like the typeface was so big, I felt like I was reading like a middle grade book, and it felt kind of insulting. Like, and I know that wasn't the intent. Again, I think the intent is to beef this book up so it looks like an epic fantasy. I just really hated it. And again, there were times where I would turn the page and it felt like the setting was a little bit too, like it wasn't centered on the page. And I might be just imagining that, but it just wasn't very pleasant. And then you couple that with like the very, very generic, very like 17-year-old fake edgy writing, and the lack of diversity in the different characters' voices. And I just knew I was not going to enjoy reading 400 more pages. And so regretfully, even though I feel like I just got this like a month ago, I am going to be taking it on my unhaul today, which I am definitely doing. I'm going to go to Half Price Books at least, and I may also hit Barnes & Noble while I'm out. I haven't been book shopping in a while, and for reasons I will not get into, I got a little bit of extra money yesterday, and I'd like to spend it. So I'm going to be taking 5 Broken Blades and a couple of other books to to Half Price to unhaul, and then I will be picking up a couple of others. So I need another physical book since I'm putting this one down. And so last night I read the first 2 chapters of One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. I didn't bring it with me out of the bedroom because I am foolish, but I don't really have a solid opinion on that one just yet. Writing is just okay so far. The setting is really cool. So I'm going to get a little bit further into that today probably, but the next time you see me should be on the way to the bookstore. I will check in with you again. I will certainly let you know what I get. My main goal is to pick up the entire Between Earth and Sky trilogy physically. I have the first 2 books on my Kindle, but I definitely want that trilogy physically. And Mirrored Heavens just came out, and I'm really tempted to make that another physical read that I try and get to this month, but I've got so many other books that I need to read. But so I will check in with you guys before and after the bookstore. Hello. It is now Sunday morning, and I know how I said that I was going to film and update you guys on my sojourn to the bookstore. And I did, twice actually, but for some reason the sound wasn't working. I tried twice and I just couldn't get the sound to behave. I hope it's working now. Afterwards, I realized that the book haul ended up being so large that it really actually deserves its own video. So that is what I am going to do on Wednesday. I will show off my quite large book haul. I hope you look forward to it. But for now, that brings us to the end of this vlog. It has been a very successful reading week for me. I finished 2 books, both of which I really enjoyed. I started a bunch of others. I did DNF one, but I really think that this may finally be the end of that horrible reading slump that I've been in for the last 2 months. So with that, I am going to leave you and get started on another one. And I hope you look forward to both my book haul and my next reading vlog. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video.